Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, you have endured a very long and arduous trial throughout these entire proceedings. Now we come to the end where you will choose the guilt or innocence of these defendants. I thank you for your patience as you've poured through mounds of evidence during this trial, and as you remember and as you will see, the evidence against the defendants is overwhelming and without dispute. It is now your job to determine their fate as they stand before you today. I believe the evidence speaks for itself and will help you determine their futures. I trust that you will make the right decision. Members of the jury, you have been given proof that these defendants have committed crimes that go beyond just innocent mistakes. They shake the very foundation for which we all cling. Although innocent in appearance, I can assure you that these defendants are nothing of the sort. I can assure you that they have been branded by their crimes. Now, even though the defense has contended that their faults have been erased, the evidence presented to you is quite contrary. Without taking any more of your valuable time than necessary, I will briefly remind you of the guilt of their crimes. And although each of these have committed major crimes, before we move forward, let's not forget the ones that are easily hidden. Stand before you as one of these defendants. Remember the gossiper, the one who by her own testimony testified that she thought her crimes were a victimless crime. She truly believed that all those she spoke about behind their backs were never harmed. But I also remind you of the testimony of those victims who, after hearing them testify of the heart-reaching details of how they were harmed by her poison. I also remind you of the so-called believer, the believer who claimed a belief, but yet never made himself approved or studied to do so. This same so-called believer who yet even serving on church committees and even as a staff member and teacher never followed through with their true commitment. Even to the point that they never attended the place on a regular basis that they claim they love so much. Let's not forget the elitist. She believed that she held a higher standard than those around her just because of her position in life. And although many, many times you heard the testimony of those who walked by or who she walked by, who she never lended a hand to, or never was there for a shoulder to lean on. Ladies and gentlemen, let's look back at what the defense has presented. The defense wants us to believe in mythical beings and fairy tales. I ask you, how can it be that one man came, an innocent man of all things, to die for all these that stand before you? And he was able to take on the guilt. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you have to ask yourself, is that reality? So he asks us to believe in mythical beings and fairy tales. That somehow these that stand before you have been forgiven of their crimes. They deserve to be punished, not redeemed. Throughout these entire proceedings, the defense has been unable to offer any kind of evidence to the innocence of the defendants. Let me repeat that. Not 1 ounce of evidence has ever been provided to show the innocence of those that stand before you. The defense has never laid blame on anyone else. He's never accused their parents because of their upbringing, and he's never blamed their environment. He's also been unable to present any testimony whatsoever that they are not guilty. In fact, the only documented evidence that the defense has even presented is this holy book that he continues to cling to now. I remind you that of all the evidence the prosecution has given in favor of the guilt of the defendants, the only thing the defense has presented is this, what he calls a holy book. Somehow that book holds these great truths of life. Members of the jury, don't be fooled by this attempt at fictional truth. The prosecution has presented facts. The defense has presented dreams and wishes. The defense has attempted to deflect the obvious evidence against his clients in hopes that the jury forgets all the things that the defendants have done. I urge you to look at the evidence and recall the testimony of the victims of these crimes and use that to make your verdict. These defendants should be punished as they deserve to be. They should be sent to a place that is only meant for those who have committed crimes like these. A place of darkness separated from the light. A place where they will be separated from their loved ones and anything resembling love, goodness, or life. I urge you to find them guilty so that their punishment may be carried out and justice can be served. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. We will now hear from the defense side in this closing argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my friend the prosecutor is exactly correct. These are not innocent people. He's absolutely correct in that each of them have committed crimes, and he has very clearly and concisely given to you in eloquent words and wonderful terminologies proof of their guilt. From the gossiper who told stories, or the believer who never lived out what they ought to have been doing. You know, and all of them, they all have their places of error. Now, he would have you to understand that when we talk about faith and belief, and we start talking about innocence and redemption, we're talking about something that we've earned. Earning redemption and earning forgiveness is not an option for anyone. None of these can earn any of their release from their punishment. And truly, if we were in a different place, in a different world, this is what they would have to face. But you see, there is something here for them. The believer who believes in their faith. And all of these who have professed a sense of faith have understood that they have been redeemed, and that though they ought to be facing punishment, there is one who did die for them, and that one's name is Jesus.
Objection, Your Honor. The beliefs of the defendants are not considered evidence in this trial.
Overruled. Might I remind you, there is no objections for in closing arguments. Mr. Defense Attorney, continue, please.
Thank you, sir. The things that these young folks have done are the same things that each of us do. Tell stories, hold grudges, act hatefully, act selfishly, live in vain, are awfully proud of ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, these who have been caught are no different than you and I. For the only difference, except for the fact that they find themselves shackled and chained together as if being held in the bondage of the sins that they have committed. They have professed a faith, and yet they understand that they've created these sins. You and I have done these things. Now, the prosecutor would also have you suggest that what we were holding before you was some mythological perspective. I hold to you and submit to you that we have a reality, and that text I held in my hand, the Bible, is not a text of myth or of story, but of truth and of strength for our lives and our future. And that when we look for the scales of justice within the world in which we live, within the court that is lived by the letter of the law, those scales of justice would be weighted awfully heavily towards guilt. But we understand. We understand that though each of us have done these things ourselves, that it was by one drop of blood, one single drop of blood from the cross, when Jesus the Christ...
Objection, Your Honor. This Jesus person isn't even here to testify to these facts.
Overruled. And again, I'm going to remind the prosecutor, this is your second time. There is no objections for a closing argument. One more outburst from you, you will be removed from this courtroom, and I'll hold you in contempt of court. Is that clear?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may continue.
Thank you. So you see, friends, we are they, and they are we. And the gift that they receive for forgiveness is the same gift that you and I receive. It is the same gift that you and I know and hold true in our lives. in many different ways. It's the same truth and reality that we've garnered in our souls since the day we were small children. We have heard it from when we went to church or Bible school or somewhere else. We heard it even this morning in the earlier parts of this time together as others have sung and played. A little children's song that reminds us that each of us have been forgiven and each of us may receive grace. They know it, but yet in their guilt it's hard for them to sing. You know it. It's a simple song. It goes like this. Jesus.
Objection, Your Honor. This Jesus put his own testimony to take. I am a man that you might go home to. He did not use his own testimony to evidence his voice. This is my bed. One murder is not done. It's done now. Your Honor, this is not fair. Righteousness like filthy rags, there's nothing they could say. Bow their heads in silence, and they will let away. Before the true believers, each time it was the same. His glory shone around them as they called upon his name. One drop of blood fell to the sea. It covered their transgression,
He was defeated.